My name is Terry, and I've known Joe for about 8 years now. I produce a show called Nature Adventures, and one day my co-host and business partner got a random phone call from a New York number, and it ended up being a PR firm that was representing Joe and his zoo, and he was going to make a proposal to us to go down there to film.
Hi, I'm Todd. I'm also a co-host and producer for Nature Adventures. I'm the pretty one, of course. But yeah, we got a call from a PR firm. A man named Mark called and said he wanted to know if we'd be interested in filming this zoo in Oklahoma. And he'd seen our show. He knows that we're straight shooters. What we see, we put on the air, and no agenda. Just go down. What we see, we can film. We can present it how we see it, like we always do. So we said, sure, we'll do that.
So we got in the car and we headed down to Oklahoma, and we got there later in the afternoon, and we went right to the office to meet up with Joe. We had arranged that he would set us up in a 2-bedroom trailer right there on the property. It had a bathroom, but it didn't have a shower, so Joe said that in the morning we could just go over to his house and use his showers. The trailer that he put us in, it was pretty rustic, and it came complete with its own wildlife. It was actually in the emu pen, so the emus could come right up onto the deck. It definitely kept things interesting. After a quick tour of the zoo, Joe invited us to go to supper with him and John, so that was pretty cool. We got up the next morning and we went over to Joe's house to take a shower. And we walk in the door and there's tigers running around everywhere in the house. Just young tigers. They weren't anything too scary, but they absolutely loved people, and for some reason they really were attracted to me, and they kept on trying to crawl up my legs and bite at my hands, and I ended up coming out of that house that morning with so many scratches and bruises and bite marks. But I'm not complaining. It was an experience that most people never get to have. I mean, who gets to hang out in a house full of tiger cubs? There was so much to do at the zoo that we really honestly didn't even know where to begin, but we were able to spend the entire day just kind of shadowing the workers and following them around, watching their day-to-day activities, and so that was kind of cool. I had a lot of experiences that I'd never had before. For example, I got to hug a kangaroo, which was one of my things that I've always wanted to do. I love kangaroos. The kangaroo, he really loved me, by the way. I also got to kiss a camel. I mean, that's something to remember. We held a skunk. But the real highlight of the day was when we were able to be part of something else that was really special. A tiger had recently given birth, and the babies were inside of this little hut thing inside the tiger's enclosure. And we needed to separate the mother so that Joe and I could enter the cage, remove the babies from that hut so that they could be assessed, make sure that they didn't have any health problems and things like that, and also so that they could see what sex they were. It was my job to crawl inside the hut and grab the baby tigers and pass them to Joe outside. He was so gracious to give me the opportunity to be the first human hand that touched them and be the first human to ever see them. It was something that I'll never forget. Being able to observe them for that couple of days, be part of every one of their day-to-day activities, it really taught us a lot about the day-to-day operations of the zoo, and people would have a really hard time imagining all that goes into their job, not just emotionally or physically, but mentally and financially. We learned not only about tigers and Joe's plight to save the tigers, but also we learned a lot about Joe and his life story. Joe's a character, but he's honest, he's an open book, and he doesn't hold anything back, and I admire that. And it's amazing how in the couple days that we spent there with him, I felt like I knew him my entire life. As our first day was wrapping up, Joe told us that we were really in luck, that a truck of tigers was on its way. He had a semi that was out on the road that was picking up a couple of tigers from another state and bringing them back to the rescue. And when a load of tigers it comes in, you really don't know what to expect. But most of the time when they're rescued from these situations, they come in and first of all, they're not happy. Second of all, they can come in all kinds of bad health conditions. Sometimes they come in and they'll have really bad teeth problems or health problems, or they're badly nutritioned. They might have different types of mites or fleas or things like that. And so they really have their work cut out for them. And I really want to point out that it should never be looked at as a reflection of the zoo, because a lot of times when you visit a rescue or a place like this that rescues animals, what you're seeing is the state that they came in on, and they're really in kind of a rehab. So to judge a place based on its condition that you see, you don't know the whole story of where that creature came from or what it's been through. But I did feel confident that when that tiger would arrive here, that it was going to be in a lot better place than the place that it was coming from.
This will be the last stop, and they're finally home. Now we just got to get them healthy.
We had a great couple of days there, and we got a ton of content, and we put together a really amazing episode. It's one of my favorite ones that we've ever done. That episode we named GW Zoo, but we also named it Saving the Tigers and put it on DVD, and Joe sold it in his gift shop so that he could raise some money that would go towards his plight to save the tigers. After we got back, Joe and I became friends on Facebook so that we could stay in touch. Now, during our time there, I recall that he had told us a lot about the lawsuit over the copyright of the name that he was using for his traveling entertainment show. So I was aware that there were a lot of tensions, and I was also aware that there was some upcoming court proceedings. Several months later, I believe it was in January 2013, we got a message from Joe, and he was wondering if we would be willing to be witnesses in a countersuit. And it would be our job to fly to Florida, testify based on everything that we had observed while we were at his zoo, as far as the animals, the conditions of the zoo, and the overall operation that he was running.
Yeah, we agreed to go down and testify, since we were testifying about what we observed at the zoo, and that's what our episode was about, and it was all positive. We get down to Florida and find out that the case had been dismissed. So here we are in Florida, and we talked to John and Joe, and we decided, you guys come along with us. Let's film some episodes of Nature Adventures. So they did. We all got together and went around Florida. Joe kind of became our producer for the week, and we had a lot of fun.
Joe had rented a Suburban to get us around, and one day we went to the marina and we chartered a golf fishing tour. And we went about 9 miles out into the Gulf. Now, Todd gets seasick really, really easily. So he had taken Dramamine, and he passed out on the bench in the cabin of the boat after he chummed the water for the rest of us with his Chick-fil-A lunch. The fish were actually biting like crazy. We were using chopped up sardines for bait. It was really gross. I didn't bait my own hook, in case you're wondering. We caught some good-sized grouper, which was really cool, but the highlight for me was when we caught an octopus. I'd never seen an octopus, like real life, up close like that before. I've only seen them in aquariums, but to actually be able to see one out of the water up close was really cool. And then, all of a sudden, this pelican decided it would take off after our bait, and it got the hook in its bill. So here we had a real catastrophe on our hands. The captain is telling us, oh, just cut the line. And we're kind of like, no way. Joe was like, no, I got this. You know, he took over right away. And for some reason, the pelican just like it knew. It was very gentle. It went really well. Joe heroically moved the hook from the pelican's bill, and everybody lived happily after. So we had this beautiful white Suburban, brand new, expensive vehicle, and we stopped at the store and we picked up some supplies. We picked up some food. We picked up some chicken, And, well, long story short, we forgot about the chicken in the back end, and you can about imagine what happens in the Florida heat after a couple days to raw chicken in the back of a vehicle. The juices had got on the carpet in the back end, and it smelled so bad. I wonder if Joe ever got his deposit back on that rental. And the next day, we headed down to the Everglades. And at that point, Joe had kind of taken on an honorary role of producer of our show. So we stopped at this airboat place and we went in, and Joe told him who we were, what we were doing, and lo and behold, he gets us this free airboat ride. Now, I'm not going to lie, to me, that airboat ride was terrifying. I didn't really enjoy it one bit. It was loud, it was windy, my hair was, we don't even want to talk about that. The rest of the day we just spent kind of exploring the Everglades area. We took a lot of back roads and we saw a lot of really cool wildlife. And during that time we really got to know both Joe and John really, really well. And we made some great memories. We shared a lot of laughs that week, let me tell you. It was a lot of fun. So fast forward a little while, we're back home, we're keeping in touch, and then we learned that Joe lost the trial and that he had to pay this $1 million settlement. And it just was so sad. I feel like he didn't deserve that. It really took an emotional toll on him.
Things actually got so bad for Joe's reputation from all the online slander that was going on that our shows were bought by a major network to air. And they got all the episodes, but they refused to air the episode with Joe on the GW Zoo. And now the Tiger King's come out, I'm sure they regret doing that.
I just want to say that everything that's depicted in the Tiger King series about Joe really is a spot-on depiction of the events as I remember watching them unfold. I would often watch his live streams when he would do those. I kept in touch how I could. And over the next few years, I really saw Joe wearing down. And it wasn't hard to see that he was hurting. And I could tell that he felt really helpless. I feel like he was bled dry mentally and financially, of course, due to the lawsuits. And it just didn't seem like he could catch a break. Nothing was going right. And then there was the zoo incident with a zoo worker getting injured by a tiger, and then Travis's death. And I think that it really all compounded. And he's had a tough life. It's been really, really rough. I really saw him being slandered online so badly. It wasn't only a war or rivalry between Carol and Joe, but both of them had swarms of supporters that were also going to battle too. It was hard to just sit back and watch him be destroyed. But boy, it was a shock to open up my Facebook one morning and see these posts that he was in jail. From what I've seen and from what I've witnessed over the years, there's really no doubt in my mind that the constant wearing down mentally, it just pushed him over the edge.
About a year ago, I got an email from a person that wanted to talk to me about our experiences with Joe in the zoo and things like that. They'd seen the episodes that we aired and they wanted to talk to me about that. So I talked to this person for well over an hour and just let them know. We got along great with Joe. What we saw at the zoo, we put in the episode. It was clean. The animals were happy. And that was about that. Nothing more came out of it. And I'm watching the credits at the end of Tiger King, and I was talking to one of their producers.
Now, I binge watched the entire series. I couldn't stop. My first thoughts were, wow, this is spot on. It's insane to me how good of a job that they did putting the story together. Joe wanted his story told. I never dreamed in a billion years that one day he would take the world by storm. It's really hard to fathom. I just never dreamed that I would just wake up one morning and see him all over the place. So it's pretty cool. But it's great. It really brought much needed attention, not only to Joe's life, but everything that he endured during his plight to save the tigers.